Million. I am an ex-agency owner turned fractional CMO and the founder of From Zero to Six Academy, where I teach early stage entrepreneurs everything they need to know about building an online business. And I'm super excited to be here today to talk about snackable content. So I hope everyone is hungry.
That's a great segue. I absolutely love that. And, it really is a delicious topic. It's a fun topic. And it really got me to thinking about, am I doing this? I don't know. I don't think I'm really doing this, especially I think as a LinkedIn Live person, it's a full course meal is a LinkedIn Live. So actually, before we kind of get into the conversation, let's define a couple of terms here. So first of all, we're going to be talking about it in the buyer's journey. So let's start with that and then talk about what snackable content is. So a lot of people might not be familiar with it. It's a marketing term. So just give us the sort of quick version of what is the buyer's journey.
Oh, I'm so happy you mentioned that because the last thing you want is to try to feed a full course meal to someone who was just walking down the street and passing by in front of your restaurant. So it's basically the 5 stages of awareness is what we call the buyer's journey, and it goes from completely unaware of their need or their interest in your product to knowing a little bit about this topic and being kind of interested to starting to be very interested and starting to think, hey, maybe I need this. Maybe I want to be involved, to actually going and eating at your restaurant, buying your product, becoming a diehard fan, basically. And that is the marketer's dream, is to bring people all the way down that path, to be a regular at your restaurant.
I love that. I love that. That's perfect. That's perfect. And I think that that's really important because if you are just doing stuff and you're at the wrong stage, and I think so much of LinkedIn is probably top of the funnel, which is like sort of that brand awareness that, catching their attention. So if you're just out there and you're trying to do all the part that's kind of further down the funnel in terms of buy my stuff, which you could have the best content, but it's like you wouldn't want to go out to somebody walking past your restaurant and whip them into the restaurant. You have to have those nice smells and catch their attention and all those kind of things. So that makes so much sense.
Yes. So, I think today, if you don't mind, we can talk about with the analogy of food, like just starting with like that buyer's journey. And, I think it begins with, what do I actually want to eat? And a buyer may not know about your type of food. Like, I don't know about you, but I have Instagram and it's a dangerous app because I scroll and all it takes is to like a few recipes or food related things. And then the algorithm will flood you with even more. And pretty soon I'm like, oh, I can't go on here if I'm hungry because there's so many incredible things. But my point is, I'm discovering new things that I would have never tasted before or known about. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is, but it looks really tasty. So I think that's kind of what your content can be like. The main thing about food and content is that it has to look good, because even before I put it in my mouth, I need the appearance, the packaging, the atmosphere to appeal to me. So if you want people to consume your content, you can have the best content in the world, like a best home cooked meal or the best 5-star restaurant. But if your storefront is always boarded up and closed and the blinds are down and there's no sign, or the sign is just a blank, outdated thing, how will people ever guess what's inside? And so for me, that storefront is going to be your LinkedIn profile.
Mm.
Your LinkedIn profile, or let's apply this to a broader term, because we might repurpose this on Instagram or YouTube, wherever we're going to talk, anywhere where you want to set up shop. So if you're going to be on these different platforms, even your website, that's your storefront.
Mm.
So ask yourself, how can I be putting out great content, but my storefront doesn't appeal, or maybe it has the wrong sign. Maybe your storefront is giving off the impression that this is a Chinese restaurant, but you're really an Italian chef. So how are you going to deal with that, right?
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
So I have a little kid.
That's okay. That's live, and that's why
Real.
we do live, because we're mothers, we're human beings. We're not just business people. We're business people that are humans.
Okay. So I think brand confusion is a big one that I deal with, Jillian. And I think that everyone here by now knows that they need to put out, they need to fill in their LinkedIn profile information. They need to put up some kind of a banner, but it's a lot harder than you would think. In fact, I have clients who it feels like every 6 months we need to update something in their profile. So it's not a one time, that's it. Just like, your restaurant may need a fresh coat of paint to
Mm,
stay relevant and to get attention. I don't know about you, but if you live in a nice, quaint town where there's like pedestrian style streets where people walk down and they're looking for a place to eat, it will draw your attention that someone remodeled. And it's like, oh, look, they have a really fresh looking sign, or look, they decorated for the holidays like Valentine's Day or Christmas. So think of that when you think of your LinkedIn profile. It's like, how are you going to package yourself, your storefront, to make it appealing and keep it updated seasonally or periodically, just with something fresh and interesting? I mean, this could be a lot of work for some people. Some people listening are like, look, I can barely post, how do you do this? Well, let me tell you that it's never been more affordable to get social media managers and assistants and help. And you start off small. You start off with somebody who's willing to give you a couple hours every couple of months. And you're like, I need somebody to come in, brainstorm with me how to maybe update, refresh in my profile, because it's always preferable to have a second set of eyes on your
mm,
stuff. And if you're not willing to do that, I'll give you an alternative is to ask a fellow coach. And you say,
mm,
you check out my profile and I'll check out yours. And it should be someone who understands what food you're selling. So they should understand. And what you want to ask them is, the two questions are, does it grab your attention and make you want to come? That's the number one question. And number two, is it clear, because you know the food that I serve? Does my profile, from a 30-second bird's eye view, does it reflect and match what you know I serve? And the person, I will guarantee you, 9 out of 10 times, they will say no, because you're much better than what your profile is reflecting. And then they'll tell you
mm.
why. And what you need to listen to or ask for is, what are the descriptive words that they tell you about your brand? I'm in a call. Okay, okay. The cat hissed at her. That's life. That's life. So I want you to understand, like, people need to think about that. So is your profile, like, let's talk about brands, let's talk about color psychology. Just like a beautiful plate of food, the presentation is so important. Like, what you're going to eat, even before you eat it, you're thinking, wow, this plate looks so appealing. Have you ever went to a restaurant and they put the food in front of you and you're just like, I don't even want to eat it. It looks too good. And you want to take a photo right away, right? Because we live in a
Instagram
phone,
world.
an Instagram world. So it's like, is your food Instagrammable, right?
Oh, that's great. That's a good
Well, let's
one.
think about your content. So when I look at your profile, does it reflect, does it make me hungry to know more about you? And does it
Mm,
reflect the type of personality you have? Like color psychology, there's 12 brand archetypes, and these brand archetypes each have their own color. Like red is dominant, purple is royal, blue is trustworthy. Okay, green is, of course, ecological, nature. Orange is innovative and fun. Um, Let me think. Pink is fresh and could be also more about love and stuff like that. White is purity, black is edgy. So I can go on and on and on. And then you can imagine in between, yellow is just a happy color, obviously. Lime green is one of my favorite colors because it's very, wow, you can't forget it, but you can't overpower people either. So look at your brand and say, did the main color I picked reflect some of the characteristics, how I want people to describe me? Because it's the same as food. It's like, do you want to be salty? Do you want to be spicy? Do you want to be sweet? And subconsciously, people are actually looking at those things. They're looking at what your brand reflects.
I love that. I love that. And you talked about not wanting to overwhelm people and people being overwhelmed. But if you think about it, if I was going to invite you over and I said, Krista, come and come over and visit with me. If I made you a big full course dinner, that's a lot of stress. I've got the roast beef going and the Yorkshire puds and the roast potatoes and all that good stuff. But if I just had you over for a glass of wine and snacks, that would make it so much easier. So if
Exactly.
you think about this snackable content, if you're already feeling overwhelmed, that's probably the easiest content to make, not only for the people to consume, but for you to create, correct?
We need to transcribe this and get some quotables, because what you just said is, I want to reiterate that is so important what you just said. LinkedIn and social media is not the full course meal. It's the happy hour. So we
Mm,
are literally right here. We are like at your local really cool restaurant, but it's only from 5 to 7, and it's time for appetizers. You cannot order any food yet. You can just order snacks and drinks. And the reason is, the full course meal is when they're ready to buy.
mm,
And a
mm.
lot of people get that confused, Jillian, because I think it's kind of our fault as marketers. We tell people, give value. Don't forget to post value. And people are like, oh, I know what I'm going to post. And they overdo it. Have you ever gotten a newsletter and I'm literally like,
Oh,
I just woke up, I'm having my first coffee, and your newsletter is like printed like 5 pages long. And you're basically giving me a mini course in this newsletter. And I know you're proud of it because it's good content, but people aren't ready for that. They
no.
need to get their morning brew, or they need to get their one glass of wine. So consider your LinkedIn content and say, am I standing out? But is it bite sized?
Mm.
Is it bite sized? That's what we want on LinkedIn.
I love that. And I've often found that I'm scrolling through the news feed. And when I'm scrolling through the news feed or the LinkedIn feed, I'm looking for just little tidbits, something that's interesting. So we can talk about, GIFs and memes and, all those kind of good little snackable things. Even a poll is, to me, short form video. But if I see a long post that's like, some people, they'll write a post that's like, it's pages. I'd be scrolling forever. It's like, this is an article. If I wanted to read this, I would go to your article and then I would consume all this. And even with an article, break it up, folks. Put some of the snacks in your articles even. That's another idea. It's like, I'm much more likely to read a newsletter if you give me some breaks and I can see a GIF or a video or something that breaks that up. But a big wall of text, I'm out of here.
I want to shout you out, Jillian, because your newsletter is really good.
Thank you.
I've actually shared it with some of my clients who are like newsletters. No one reads them. They're boring. But what you've done is you have given breadcrumbs. And that's another topic that we should talk about, is breadcrumbs. So for me, I'm going to come over to your profile because I'm liking the look and the aroma. So I'm like, this looks tasty. So that's going to be your banner that might pop, your profile photo, some funny thing you said in your title that got my attention. So think about how you can stand out in those aspects. I also really like taglines in the profile, in both the title and the banner, where you
Mhm.
say something. And what I like to use for taglines is, think about not what you do, but what your ideal customer really wants.
Mm.
Like, and this is on the buyer journey. Who's the person who doesn't even know the term? For example, personal branding. I hate that word. Sorry, guys. Because now everyone's a personal branding expert. It's like the new hot thing to become. So instead of calling yourself a personal branding expert, why don't you say, I help you get noticed. I help you go from invisible to everyone's best friend. Or
Mm.
see, and so you describe to me what you do versus just saying, on the menu we have the filet mignon. Like, I want a little bit of flair. I want you to say something that gets my attention versus all the other restaurants. So if you think of it, not just saying the fact of what you do, but describe it in a more fun, fresh way, you're going to get a lot more people who are curious about following you. Um, to go back to your newsletter, so the breadcrumbs. So when you do post something, it should be bite-sized, but like to your point, we have to break it up to keep people kind of interested. The longer the content, the more breaks we need. And
Mm.
it goes for video as well as articles, because those tend to be the longer pieces of content. So if you're putting out a video, and it's just you, there's no interview, you want to have some cuts and some zooms. I honestly am getting, some people overdo it with the emojis. I'll tell you, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Too many emojis popping up.
Popping in, it's
Like,
almost like, okay, too much, too much.
yeah, especially when it covers your face. I'm like, please don't do that. Um, but I think like there is a reason why video editing, even if it's 1 minute long, that there are some zoom outs, some cuts, some special effects. Because we need that's like the breadcrumb that keeps the person watching.
I like that.
And for your article, it's like cutting it up with what you said, like put in an animated GIF, put in what do you use all the time? Those
Videos. I embed videos,
you embed videos,
short
short videos.
videos.
Yeah, and so one of the things I love about your type of content, and I'm telling a lot more people now to do a show, is because you basically can put out all your content for the month with like 2 good shows a month. You can produce 30 days of content.
Lots of
Because
snacks.
lots of snacks, because they're so like in 30 minutes you can have like 6 snackables for sure. And then remember, you can present them in different ways. So just
Mm.
like chicken, how many recipes do you know for chicken? Probably at least 10, but probably even more. Even if you're not a good cook, you've eaten at least 10 types of chicken, right? So some people tell me, well, what should I post? And I'm like, it's not about what you post, it's about your seasoning. What is your special seasoning that you're going to put together that makes even the blandest things sound new and fresh?
I love that. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so let's hop over to the comments and see who we've got here. We've got a lot of snackable experts in the audience today. So start off with Jeff Young, because he is the king of the gifs. GIFs or GIFs, and he has GIFs and GIFs about the argument of GIFs and GIFs, which just and all it gets so meta there. But he says, in keeping with the theme today, I'm watching you from YouTube because LinkedIn Live has been glitchy and distasteful. So that's okay. That's good. That's good. Mary Wu says, I don't know what that means. Okay, I'm here with my lunch. So that everybody's jumping in on the food theme today, which is absolutely lovely. Lois Cliff says, looking forward to finding out about healthy content snacks for a great feed. That is absolutely yum. And that's absolutely true, because sometimes too, Krista, you talked about how, sweet and spicy. It's like, what's your brand? It's like Lois is all about health. So it makes sense that her snackable content is going to reflect that in everything she does, everything from her colors to what she talks about. She's not going to start talking about, I don't know, eating McDonald's, or maybe she will in a negative way.
No, and that is again so important, because imagine that you go to a restaurant and it's supposed to be like a 5-star restaurant, and you probably come prepared like for a date night, and you're dressed up nice, and you're like, this is, and the prices, there's like 3 or 4 dollar signs, or this is going to cost us a pretty penny. Then you get there and it looks like a dive bar, and there's like dirt all over the floor, and it's just terrible. So my point why I'm saying this is because I think that the way you show up in one area is the way you need to show up in every area. So people today want to see the authentic you. So if you're just kind of pretending on social media to be a certain way, sooner or later your gig is going to be up because people are going to start seeing inconsistencies, and that's where they lose trust in you. So if you want to become a brand that people find endearing and trust a lot, they're going to look at everything. They're going to look at all kinds of things about you, and a lot more than you even realize they're going to look at. So if you're what I like to say is, if you just took a snapshot of us and you took a guess at what we do, like if you scrolled through my LinkedIn profile for 5 minutes and you're like, what could she possibly do? You probably wouldn't think I was a banker. You know,
No.
you see my content is light and it's funner, and it's, so you can pretty much tell that I must be in a marketing field or content related or something like that. So do that test on yourself and say, am I showing up consistently? Because I've seen people show up and say, you know, I am this, but then in their content, I'm like, no, that doesn't match to your brand. So think about that. Are you sticking with your brand? Because your loyal customers, they want to invite their friends to your restaurant and they want to say, you know, here's what to expect. When you come to her restaurant, you're going to have the best burger in the whole city. And then they come and one night there's a burger and then there's like some weird new thing and you're like, I'm confused. What happened? Your loyal customers will not be happy. So,
Yep.
you know, you have to kind of stick with who you are. And that's why it's really important to have those descriptive words and say, like, how do I want other people to describe me? If people are talking behind my back and saying, you should really watch Jillian's show, this is why. What are the top 3 reasons that what are you going to get out of watching her show or following her or getting her newsletter? And a lot of times this intimidates people, especially people who are just starting their content journey. They're not able to post very often. So here's what I say. What would you want people to say? What would you want people to say? And sometimes we have this part of us that we're hiding, we're holding on to inside.
Mm.
And it takes a coach to kind of help you release your greatness. So I'm like, well, what do you really secretly want to be? Who do you want to be secretly? Because I know it's inside of you. It is the authentic you, but you're hiding it.
It's like
And that's what,
knocking on the window to come out.
yes, yes. And that's what, so instead of trying to produce, you know, McDonald's style food, just because you see a bunch of influencers doing it, you're trying to copy them, come up with your own secret recipe. Come up with, and don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid that sometimes it's going to be too spicy for some people. Sometimes you're going to get the sauce wrong and it won't turn out as well as you thought. But if you keep doing that, you're going to end up being a winner wherever you go, because that's the true you. And that spice is something that's actually your superpower, your unique value proposition. It's not that you're doing your craft better than everyone else. It's because you're doing it with more authenticity where other people are holding back the real them.
Mm, I love that. And, it's funny. This just came to me just now, but I was wondering if you had to say what sort of baked good you were. And I was sitting here and I thought, I'm a cookie. I'm a cookie. Like
Mm.
some people are like a fancy cake, some people would be a truffle, somebody would be a chocolate eclair, everybody would have their thing. But if you took your food, and I just like sweets better than sour, so I'm a sweet kind of person. But, if you think about it, you could say, is that reflected in everything I do? I wouldn't normally, I'm never going to show up and be somebody that puts on, I'm not into fancy makeup and shoes and this and that. So you're never going to see that in my content, but you're going to see stuff about books because I like books. It has nothing to do with my business, but that is me as a human being. And I would make edible books if I could.
Well, and that brings me to another thing. I like that question. If anyone wants to answer in the chat, what kind of flavor are you?
I love
And
that.
what would you be as an as a bakery pastry? Um, I think that for me, I would definitely be like a cinnamon bun. I would
Ah,
like to be a cinnamon bun, warm out of the oven, um, that you can lick the cream off and it's got the right flavor of like cream cheese with the right flavor of cinnamon. And then in the middle, it's got a lot to chew on. So you feel really warm and fuzzy afterwards. Um, I hope that that's what I'm giving to people here. But what you just brought up is another point, and I know we could talk for a long time. I know we're almost at time, but one of the takeaways I would love to share with people here is the idea of having a signature element that you become known for that's not directly tied into what you do. So
okay.
I think that's important because sometimes we try to be all professional and we're like, I want to make sure everyone knows what I'm offering, what I'm selling, what I do for a living. But I think that you have to stand out from so many other people who are doing that profession. And one of the ways to do that is to have some signature items. Like let's say that you have a cat and often you let your cat come into your videos or you showcase your cat. That's cool. Or maybe you always wear these big loopy earrings, or there's a guy on LinkedIn who always wears slogan tees. And I
Mm,
laughed at him like, how many of these do you own? You know, you need to open a business with these things. Has nothing to do with what they're selling, but it really does make them known for that. And I
mm.
think these little signature elements can really make you more endearing to people, you know?
Right, and plus also too, they're conversation starters because it's like I
Yes.
always think of like John Esperian, he's relentlessly helpful, and I think he's gone and like, trademarked that name, and then also too, he has on his profile, "Not a douche canoe," and it's like you hear that phrase, you immediately think of John, but if you aren't aware of what that means, that's a really great conversation starter the first time that say you had a consult with John, you could say, "What is that all about?" And he could, and it is his brand because he's not that, so it could be the same thing. I tell people, even though I have 4 passports, I'm not an international spy, because it's funny and it's silly and it's goofy. But then it's a conversation starter of like, well, why do you have 4 passports? Why do you have 4 citizenships? What's that about? It gives us somewhere to begin to have a conversation.
I love that. I think today we've covered quite a few things, but ultimately you I think we really need to end this by telling people that you do you. It's really
Mm,
important to come up with that recipe. You're not a bland, flavorless chicken breast. You are not. And just because there's a lot of people who are offering, working in your field or whatever, you can be the amazing version of you.
mm.
But don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment and think this a little bit over about what you want to convey and what would you like others to know about the true you. And sometimes it starts with uh, admiring other people and saying, like, okay, who comes to mind? Who is the content creators here on LinkedIn or on other platforms who come to mind that you admire the most? And then write down those names. And even if they have nothing to do with your specialty and your brand, describe how they made you feel and
Mm,
say, I love to follow her because she's so authentic and real, or she's so funny, or her life, she shows all these things that are interesting about her life. So write down that, and that can be your brainstorming. And then we can go and have a content powwow session together, and we can say, tell me more. How could we apply some of these things to your brand? How can we make, you have a humorous side, so show it to me, you know? So I think content is the funnest thing on earth. And I'm never full of the content, but it depends on what, because like you said, we don't want to fill people up. This is just the happy hour. So remember that, everyone. We're just giving out samples, we're just giving person one drink and that's it. We're not trying to stuff things down their throat. Um, and if you can follow this rule and think of the food analogy, I think it will help everyone here produce better content and more importantly, have fun.
that's important. That's important. And, and it's like, I just think, I know that you're across the pond right now, but it's like I always think of Costco, and that's something that's particular to being in the United States, where we at Costco, it's a big box store, and there's people that serve snacks, and it's like everybody laughs. You go to Costco, you get full before you leave because it's like they got cheese things on one aisle, they got little paper cups with pretzels. You can go there, and it's a great place to take your kids because they get fed while you're going through. But it's like we need to be those people at Costco with the trays of the different snacks and saying, here, try this, and maybe that's to the bottom line message, Krista, of people needs to just experiment, see what you like, what snackable content attracts you, and then just give it a try. It could just be a meme or a GIF of this or that. There's just so many different things that you could do out there. Just give it a whirl.
I love that, and I think saving people's profiles is hard on
Mm,
LinkedIn. That's another thing is, like, one of the things I would recommend is if you use Google Chrome, you can actually create a bookmark, and you can say, "My favorite creators," or you can say, "New people to check out." And I think Twitter does this much better because, well, X,
yes.
Twitter, they let you create lists. And I love that because I wish LinkedIn would give that to us. You have to have like Sales Navigator if you want to do that. But you can do this for free on Google Chrome, create bookmarks, and then start journaling about like what attracted you to those people, what caught your eye, and maybe you'll start being more aware. Oh, it was their smile, their picture really popped, or their background of their photo, they cut it out and they have a color, or the banner was really funny, or like John, the title was a conversation starter and it was fresh and unusual. So put those things down, and then you'll have your bullet list and go through your profile with a checklist and be like, how can I make mine more attention grabbing? How can I add something personal that gets more attention, etc.?
That's perfect. That's perfect. So we'll close on that note because it's good. You have provided us with such great value today, Krista. Once again, congratulations on becoming
Thank
a
you.
LinkedIn top voice. That's a great achievement. And I'm excited for everyone else. I know there's tons of people. It feels like it actually makes me feel really proud to know so many people that just got named
Me
top
too.
voice. It's just
Me
like,
too. I feel
yay,
the same. I'm like, finally, the people who like were the, I would say, like,
the
we're
worker
really
bees.
putting, yeah, the worker bees, they put in the work, they have good content. Finally, some of them get recognized. And so for the people who didn't get the top voice right now, um, keep going, because I think that even though it might be silly to think it matters, ultimately good work will always pay off. And so just keep going and don't count the likes. My likes fell a lot when they did this algorithm change, and I just kept going. I'm like, I'm going to put out content because I like this content and I know I can help people, I can make people smile. I'm going to keep putting it out there. So have that attitude and don't be it's like the getting on the scale and thinking, "Oh, I lost 1 pound. Now I'm 1 pound." Throw the scale away. Don't be measuring every single week and being obsessed with the numbers. Have fun and you'll be fine.
I love that. I love that. Okay, well, thank you for being here today, Krista. Thank you for everybody. I encourage you all to follow Krista, and she's just got great snackable content for you. So just get on over to her profile, check her out, and thank you again for being here. And we'll see you guys all next time. Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.